Bring it back to all of us. So Killian, Bill Bacon, we're going to have some more people joining in a little bit, but since it is at that 3:30 hour, I think we could go ahead and start with introductions. I want to welcome everybody for being here. You know, what we're trying to do over the next couple of weeks for all of our admitted students is we want to have a variety of events for filmmakers, for cinematographers, for screenwriters, for graphic designers, for animators. You know, we're in week 10. We're all stuck at home. Sometimes we feel a little bit crazy, but what's better than getting together with a bunch of other creatives, a bunch of other artists, and really just kind of talking about what we do each and every day, and more importantly, what all of you will be doing in the fall and in the summer when you start school at CCH and Flashpoint Chicago. So today we're going to be very cinema focused. We have the chair from our Flashpoint Chicago campus. Bill Bacon's with us today. Bill, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome everybody. It's good to see you.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill. You take it.
No, it's just such an interesting time, and I use that word guardedly because there's so many different challenges, just everyday life, but also filmmaking and the creative process in general. So I'll be glad to talk about any of that. Yeah, Killian is here, and then John will be joining us later from the film department. And just want to welcome you and glad to answer any questions you have as we go along.
Great. So I also want to introduce Killian. Killian is one of our faculty members over at the Chicago campus. And guys, for everybody else, before I turn it over to Killian, we have Kyle, Ryan, Kit Rivers. They're going to be in the chat room. If you have any questions, put it in the chat, but I'm also going to make it so you guys could unmute. We want this to be very interactive. At a point, Killian might ask you to turn your cameras on, ask the questions. But if you're not talking, please mute yourself, just so we can get going. But Bill and Killian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Brad. So today we're just going to talk about the filmmaking process from concept to completion. And again, it's pretty informal. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask us. So we'll talk about the process and then also how we reflect that at Flashpoint. Just real quickly, my background has been in mostly post-production, but I've worked in production and pre-production as well, both in Los Angeles and Chicago, in pretty much every format, everything from commercials and promotional pieces to TV broadcast and cable TV, feature films, all of that. So I've been teaching at Flashpoint going on 9 years now. And again, mostly in post-production, but also across the board in the business of entertainment, screenwriting, production, all of that good stuff. So Killian, did you want to give us a little bit about your background as well?
Hi, John. I am, wow, if we're going to go all the way back, I was in my first play when I was 18 months old, and pretty much have been in theater, film, or some sort of artsy arena since then. My parents were shocked and annoyed when I said I might want to go to law school. They said that's no place for a person like you, so I was sent immediately to art school. I mostly do stop motion animation right now, but that's primarily because I really like to make things, and I like acting, but I don't like being on camera, like now. So it's a really good way for me to be able to create life and characters without having to be seen.
And I'm sure some of you feel that same way. It's in a lot of ways, it's easier to be behind the camera as kind of the puppet master than, you know, being exposed in front of the camera. So cool. And then John just arrived. He's a full-time faculty member as well. John Ottebacher, you want to give us a little bit about your background?
I'm muted. There we go. Absolutely. So yes, I am, I don't know, I've been a filmmaker in the Midwest for about 15 years. I have a couple of advanced degrees. I did not know what I wanted to do when I was younger, got into sales and business and just thought, why am I going to spend my life doing something that I'm not passionate about? So I switched gears, got involved in filmmaking, moved to Chicago, made my first feature film. And yeah, I've been on kind of a roller coaster ever since, doing narrative films, corporate work, industrial work. I've got a documentary series right now where I put myself in front of the camera, which was not my favorite thing in the world, but it was good to kind of stretch and do new stuff. And yeah, I've been with Flashpoint for, I don't know, 12 years maybe, something like that. About the same length as Killian has been. Specialized probably, I'm most known probably for cinematography and also doing some of the more business side of the program, documentary. But yeah, I kind of love all aspects of filmmaking, and I like to switch around and do different things because it keeps me engaged.
So there you go. Okay, cool. Well, why don't we, unless anybody has any questions, we can move into kind of the first part of the process where we talk about story ideas. Where do you get ideas? How do you generate ideas? That sort of thing. So John, if you want to continue with that and start us off, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is a question that people come up with a lot, you know, how do I get a film idea? And I think that ideas for movies come from a variety of places. So, and probably the three most important roles in terms of story or ideation are the writer, director, and the producer. And oftentimes I think people confuse what those roles do. And I understand that because those roles are intermingled, right? You have writer producers, you have writer directors, you have producers who occasionally direct. Basically though, those three above the line group positions are the ones who generally come up with the ideas. That doesn't necessarily mean they write the script or they direct them, but they come up with the ideas and then they start looking for collaborators, at least on the professional level. That's what we do. We don't try to do everything ourselves because we know that if we try and do everything ourselves, we'll probably hit a cap in terms of the quality and the production level that we can go to. So I'll give you a few examples. A good friend of mine, she's very much a producer. She had an idea about a story that she wanted to tell about a young woman who was smuggled to an island in the Caribbean. Now, even though she's an accomplished producer and in many ways has all the right skills to be a really good producer, you know, she realized that if she was going to try and tell this story, she couldn't be the producer doing it because she also wanted to direct the story. So she asked me to come on board and help her out and help her develop that story. So even though she has kind of the seed or the kernel of a story, maybe she's got a character or a location or whatever, she's got, she knows that there's going to be real logistical concerns. So how does she start to craft that into something larger, and how are the people that she brings on board, what kind of input are they going to have? So as a producer, I come on and I'm thinking very much from a realistic perspective. She worked with probably 3 or 4 different writers on the script, getting different perspectives, talking about story structure, trying different arcs for different characters. So, you know, this idea, well, she's a writer director, she did the whole thing. It's very much her story, but, you know, she had a lot of help coming together and doing that. Another example would be, you know, myself as a producer, I may have an idea for a project that I want to do, but I don't necessarily even want to direct it. You know, maybe I've got an idea for something like, well, yeah, I've got a bunch of ideas. Trying to think of one, a good one. I'll give you one that I haven't done yet. But it's a story. It's a coming of age story. It's a famous book, and it was told a certain way, and it was even made into a film by a really famous filmmaker. Well, I had an idea that what if I took that same coming of age story about this group of young people, but I totally switched the context of it, right? Instead of it being set in I think it was set in the 60s or 70s, bring it up to modern times. Instead of having it be in like small town Midwest, have it be in big city Midwest or even East Coast potentially. So I'm not going to write that script. Screenwriting is not my forte. So I'm looking to other people. Who can I bring on board that can help me, you know, put this thing together? Who can help me tell this story? And then, documentaries, I think totally different side of stories. Where do stories come from? I don't know about you guys, but I am constantly excited or interested in things. I'm very easily transfixed and focused on things. I was listening to a podcast on the way to where I am right now, which is in Michigan. And I was like, man, this guy would be a great character for a documentary, and I've already, got my little research folder of like old videos and old stories that he's told and things he's been involved with. And it's a famous athlete and he's got like 30 years in the industry, but as far as I know, nobody's made a documentary about him. So, I'm just kind of always on the lookout for anything that interests me, because I assume if it interests me, it's going to interest a lot of other people too.
So if I could jump in here just real quickly, I'm going to hand off to Killian in just a second. But I also want to invite everybody that's here, please feel free to turn on your camera if you like, or to ask a question. If you turn on your camera and raise your hand, we'd be glad to see who's out there and, answer any questions you might have. So feel free to do that. Invite you to do that. So Killian, you were working with one of our students earlier this week on developing a thesis idea. So can you tell us about that?
And also with John moving around the way he is, now I want to make a movie about somebody who moves around. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, Drew Whitney, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say his whole name. So this dude who is working on his thesis film and he's about to finish up with, of course, the situation we all find ourselves in was having some trouble figuring out a way to finish up, and he decided to do something experimental. So he wrote and asked me how to get an idea, which I thought was strange because this is like one of the brighter people. He's really great, and I heard from Bill later that he actually has some great ideas, but he just didn't know what to do. So he asked me how to do it, and I said, well, and this is embarrassing, so Bill, please don't listen. One of the things we did was we went on a field trip in class to Etsy. There was a reason for it. I can make it pedagogically sound, but not right now. And when we got on Etsy, he started looking around and said, I always thought this was just a bunch of Roseannes who came here to do crafty stuff, but this is actually really cool. Look at these awesome things. And so somehow I figured probably the best way to explain to him how to get an idea was to say, remember your experience on Etsy. And so I said then, and somehow we got from his experience on Etsy to an otter, the dreamlike experience of an otter being alone during a pandemic. And that was like this long thread of stuff, but that ended up being the idea, creating this dream experience of this other creature and something that was impossible to truly see, but creating the feeling of it. So yes, as John says, thank you for backing this up. Ideas can come from Etsy too. They can come from everywhere. The only thing you have to do is just allow them to take you home.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is learning to trust yourself about what's a good idea and what's not. There's one yardstick too is I would think anything that annoys you or really causes a strong reaction, it pisses you off, maybe that's something you want to get out of your system and write a story about it, that would be great. I'm also reading an article in the New Yorker now about a guy who builds his own submarines and goes down to his goal is to hit the bottom of every ocean on the planet and be the first guy to do that. It's a harrowing story and it would make a great film, and the guy's insane and his whole crew is insane, but it's a fascinating story. So they come from just about anywhere. So Aziz, I see you're here. Do you have any questions or any thoughts on story generating?
Yeah, I was just listening to you. I mean, as a comment or maybe as just an idea that I can share, I get ideas from the conversation that I made with people every day. Today I had this conversation with friends over the Zoom talking about like the quarantine life. And I said, oh, okay, we can maybe try to write some short story about it. Why can't we just discuss and see how it can go? just by brainstorming. So I mean, they can come from everywhere. So our conversation. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. And it's when you combine a couple of ideas together, and John, you're the expert here, but I've heard, you know, Star Wars is described as a Western, but set in space. So if you combine things like that or combine genres, absolutely, very creative, you know, setting up the setting and all of that. So yeah, good point. Good point. Killian, did you want to show storyboards next? So in the process of making a film and getting it, you know, taking it from a story and an idea to actually realizing it on screen, one of the key steps is building storyboards. And I'm sure several of you have done this already, and those of you who like to draw and doodle, it comes naturally. So Killian, you wanted to share some that our students have done?
Yes, and also I'd like to call out, I believe it's Drew, or am I spelling that correctly, in chat, backing up with what we see and what we observe, which goes really nicely with the conversations Ozzy was talking about, and then, you know, seeings and surroundings. So thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
I'm going to share this screen and talk over it. So this first page is, and I apologize, but my desktop's a lot messier than you can see. This first page, the film is about graffiti artists, and the student was setting up to, kind of embarrassingly, he wanted to make sure you guys knew this. He was not doing this as a comic book, which is what he's learned that he should do, because with a storyboard, you do the whole story. What he did was he did it for coverage. So he doesn't have the edits, he doesn't have the pacing in here. So it's really, really important to make sure that you are putting images side by side so that you can see the flow of the story as well as the shots themselves. But that said, I thought he did some really nice stuff. I've got to admit, I kind of tease him about how this kind of looks like a Green Arrow. But, you know, I'm not going to give him too hard a time because he loves DC and he would probably take that as a compliment. So we have this as our first shot. He's setting up with this person looking at something that's important. He's setting up an emotional impact. Then, you know, they start to work. We're watching the beat by beat of their working. Then I'm going to go to a new share, which is now page 2. Please make noise to tell me if this works, because I cannot see you guys.
Too small.
It's too, okay.
There we go.
Yeah, it was at the bottom. That was the problem.
Killian, it's working now.
Thank you. Okay, so this is where he especially looks like Green Arrow. I mean, it's even got the mustache and the beard. I'm sorry. But yeah, and I like how he puts mood things a little bit like in a comic. He shows camera movement and, you know, head movement, as well as a little bit of blocking. He shows that he's removing the hood here. This is really nice. Her looking up, I'd like to have seen an arrow there. But he's not only showing us the image, he is showing us the activity of the image, and that's really nice. And then one last one, I think this one, new share on 3. This, he actually had like 25 pages. I only brought 3. I liked this part where he's pulling the shirt and showing, this one's a little bit of lighting coming in, movement again. The main thing about a storyboard, and there's some people who don't do them, good for them, but the main thing about a storyboard is you've got to really make the film before you make the film. We have to see where the film comes from and where it's going to become, and we have to know what we're all working towards. Whatever part of the crew you're on, we all have to have the same common goal. And good storyboards, or at least storyboards that show you the movement and the mood, even if they're not particularly well drawn, those storyboards help everybody to be part of the bigger part of the process, and it allows for fewer questions and fewer misunderstandings on set.
Yeah, and we always tell our students, because the common response we get is, well, I don't know how to draw. Well, if you draw stick figures, most of the time you can actually get across most of what you need to communicate about what's happening in the screen or on the screen. And it's really important to communicate to your crew what that is, but also to kind of go through it yourself before you get on the set, because then you can say, oh, this, you know what, we really don't need this shot, but we do need an overhead shot here that kind of shows the lay of the land and where everybody is, that sort of thing. So just because you're not an expert artist yet does not mean you shouldn't be doing storyboards. It's a great way to kind of think through your project before you actually shoot it. So, okay, any questions on storyboards or any thoughts or other ways to pre-visualize what you do? Okay, cool. I'd like to send it over to John again now. He's going to talk about collaboration, and he's got some visuals he wants to share about collaboration and prepping your project.
Yeah, Killian, are you gonna pop those up for me? Cool. Yes, okay. So in one of our advanced cinematography classes, building on this idea of collaboration, cinematographers, I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, they know how to use the camera. And so they show up on set and, work with the director and the crew and they make it happen. And when I'm teaching cinematography, we're talking a lot with our students about all kind of levels or all phases of production. So pre-production, post-production, as well as production itself. So one of the assignments that they do is this pre-visualization package. And so that's an opportunity for cinematographers to get on the same page with directors. So this is an example by one of our students, current students, Cynthia Martinez. She turned this into me Tuesday, in fact. And so I was like, I want to use that because I had something else planned, but I was like, no, I want to show Cynthia's. So yeah, if we could go to the next slide, that would be great. So keep going, one more. So this script that she was given to work with this director had two different eras in it. And so one of the things we talked about was, yeah, you don't have it cast yet. You don't have locations yet. You can do storyboards and you can do shot lists, but what else can you do? And I think it's really important for people to speak the same language. So Cynthia got together with the director and they talked about the project first of all. I mean, communication. But then they went deeper and said, well, are there movies that you imagine or that you think about and that pop into your mind when we're reading this script or when I'm talking to you about the script? And then they each kind of break up and go get their own references and come back. In an ideal world, they both have ideas and they share those ideas with each other. And they try and get on the same page. And it's not like, well, here's her ideas and here's his ideas and, 1 + 1 = 2. Hopefully it's like 1 + 1 merges into 3, right? Something better comes out of that discussion. So in this particular instance, we're looking at, they're not flashbacks necessarily, but they are scenes that took place in the past. And so they were looking for a specific aesthetic. So this kind of soft, warm, natural colors, yellows, oranges, muted kind of greens. You also see kind of a haze throughout it. And I've totally forgotten the name of this movie, but it's an indie film. I don't think she has the name of it in here. It was in her presentation and paper, so I apologize. But, we're going through this, like the types of shots. We've got these wide shots and then these medium close-ups, this extreme close-up. And then if we go to the next slide and look at the difference between this and the future. So there is no like present tense, there's past and future. And the future was supposed to be much, well, how would you guys describe what we're looking at here? Anyone? Don't make me do the Bueller reference. Bueller? Anyone? Bueller? Do you guys get that reference? I don't know.
Looks kind of dystopian in a way. The darkness.
Oh, okay.
Makes me think of the Joker, kind of.
There you go. Thank you, young man, whoever you might be.
Yeah.
Brad.
His name is Brad.
Yeah, but so it's definitely got some cooler tones. Definitely, the Joker is something that you could look at that's similar to this. Greens, blues, but not like normal greens and blues, more teals and violet shades. And And so now they're really starting to communicate. Like, we've got these two different, you know, parts, chunks, context, worlds within our film, and they have to look different from each other so the audience understands that they've switched time periods, right? And I think you guys have all seen this in movies. Maybe you haven't thought about it or really dug into why they do this, but this is you know, I don't want to say a common thing, but clarity is really important. So clarity between crew members and collaborators is really important, and then what they're trying to communicate to the audience, you know, having that things be clear. So I just thought these were beautiful references that she pulled from. Let's keep going. And then we said, well, what are the color palettes? Like, let's actually dig into each of these shots and let's look at these tones. So this is very neutral earth tones, right? We can keep going, Killian. As opposed to night. They're actually kind of similar, but you've just shifted away from warm to cool. And I don't know how much about cinematography you guys know, but the two major color temperature ranges that we work with are tungsten, which is very warm, and daylight, which is very cool. So you start to think about like, oh, what kind of instruments could I use to achieve this, you know, effect? What kind of instruments combined with what kind of camera settings, combined with filtration. And then you even start to think about other movies that have created this look. How much of it did they do in post-production? And now we're starting to think about what kind of, it's called a LUT or a lookup table. But would they come in with to try and get this look after they shot it a certain way? We can keep going, Killian, thank you. So then she starts thinking, well, most of this takes place in this one room. And so the past, she wants to shoot like this. You've got windows. You can see the sources of light coming in. So we've got sunlight coming in through the windows. We've got, I think she was talking about using Gemini. So these newer LED light panels up front here. There's a TV. The blue and the orange are for the two different characters. We can keep going. And so here's the same thing, but in the future. So she's going to use the same space, but light it differently. And I believe they also take place at different times of day. One is kind of in the evening, twilight, and this one is at night. So you can see, like, we've got different characters. We start to see some of the motion with the arrows. She moved the lighting over because now the TV is on, so the lighting is coming, like moonlight coming from outside, and the TV lighting it. You can keep going. And then she went even farther out and said, well, if we were going to do this, what would we need to do this? What would this cost? And you can see not using equipment from the school, though they could use equipment from the school. If they were to go out and rent this equipment, working with one of the local rental houses, they came up with a quote for what this would cost. Another thing that's not mentioned in here that was in her presentation, but the rental quote just reminded me of it, is if you notice, there's only one lens. So Cynthia, in her study of different films and how they were shot, came across a couple of filmmakers who used one single lens for the entire movie or for entire scenes. And so that's something that she, as a creative person, wanted to explore instead of changing the focal length of the lens, right? So here's my medium shot, you know, and we get in, there's my medium close-up, and now we're into, like, you know, tight close-up, right? So different lengths of lenses. So she wanted to explore moving the camera with just a single lens on it instead of changing the lenses out, which I thought was great. And that's one of those ideas you want to run that by the director early in the process. You don't want to show up on set with one lens and the director's like, all right, let's go to the wide shot. What are you doing? No, put the wide lens on there. And you're like, no, everything's on a 35. So anyways, let's keep going. And then Cynthia did storyboards as well. And again, these, you know, I wouldn't say Cynthia is a great artist. She's got much better illustration skills than I have. For instance, I thought about grabbing a marker and drawing on the glass doors in here, because you can do that. But literally, I like draw a circle and put dots, and then I use the nose. The point of the nose tells me which direction people are facing. That's all I've got. That's the extent of my drawing abilities. But these are great. She got into her storyboards enough that it communicated the idea, and they are shooting mostly from this one side and moving the camera around, staying on the one side of the 180-degree rule. Yeah, we can keep going. I think there's a couple pages of storyboards. it's a pretty simple film, but then she continued on. She had a little animatic, which I don't think we'll be able to see. we could if you wanna copy and paste that in, we could do it. Let's
And
see.
John, can you explain, while we're here, can you explain what an animatic is?
Sure. So an animatic is any time that we take things that are that don't have motion in them and we add motion to them. So you can do that. You can take a storyboard or an illustration and you can zoom in and move across it. You can take computer-generated characters and you can animate them to create movement, because we want to see two things. We want to see characters moving and we need to see camera moving. Those are the two main things that we're tracking. And an animatic lets you see how those shots are actually going to work, as opposed to a storyboard, which is two-dimensional, and you're like, oh, this is the frame, and this is the frame. An animatic is like, this is the frame, but then we're going to move into this frame, you know, and the character's going to walk by like this. So the animatic adds that energy to it. You know, and you can do animatics a lot of different ways. There's some cool software that people are using, and you know, there are some of the high-end movies right now, your Marvel and DC movies, for instance, using animatics to the point where you could watch the animatics with a soundtrack and it's almost a movie. I mean, they're using very high-end. They're putting lighting into their animatics, so they even know where they're going to put lights in the shots. And so many of those movies are animated that the animatics are like the rough motion for the final animation.
Well, even go ahead, Killian. I'm sorry.
Working? Was the video working? Did you all see it start?
Mm-mm.
Okay, then I'm gonna have to reshare. So I'll do that and put it on pause, and you just tell me when you're ready for me to play it. Okay?
Okay, cool. Just let me know when it's up.
This is, oh, you'll see it. You'll see it come up because I'll be sharing the screen. But if you guys will just, please know, they jump, it gets jittery on Zoom when you share video. It's not awesome. So, okay, I'm stopping now.
Yeah, go ahead and play it once it's up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's see it. I can talk about it, but it's so much more powerful to see it.
Nope. I'm not sitting through that again.
Hey, while you're up, can you check for mail?
Yeah, sure.
Beth?
They finally responded.
Who?
SEU Tech.
Oh, okay.
Can you not, please?
No, come on, this is special.
You don't have to record everything.
Come on, you'll be glad I did.
I'd really prefer privacy in times like these.
Trust me, honey.
So the character on the left is a parent in this story, and this is a young person who is applying to college. Maybe you guys have some experience with that. I don't know. And the person, I just wanted to make sure it was clear, the person is coming over to record with their cell phone. They wanted to shoot that experience. So this is a pretty advanced animatic. I mean, it's not advanced in terms of technology, but she took the time to move the characters and the figures around, again, using what she had available to her in this shelter in place, and to actually feel it out. And a nice thing about an animatic is you can start to add music and sound effects to it and really get a sense for the pace of the thing. I'm working with some filmmakers right now who recorded their entire script that they had initially planned on shooting, and now they're actually focusing on turning it into like an audio story, which is really interesting. And it's like, well, audio stories have a lot of the same things that films do. Pacing is so incredibly important. You've got to build the music for it. You've got to build the sound design for it, all the sound effects. And animatic's just a great way to kind of figure that out. I've even seen that they weren't animated, but I've seen screenwriters do that, where they didn't have, their scripts hadn't been made yet, but they wanted to have reels. So they hired actors, or they did the voices themselves, and they created, using animation, photos, they created little reels for their scripts so people could get a sense for what their scripts would be like once they're produced. there's just there aren't any rules, which is kind of great. Anything that we can imagine, we can kind of push as long as it's moving, the ball forward, right? We're trying to move towards this finished product, whatever that may be. And as many steps as we need to take that will make that be better, we'll take them. Time and money, of course, being taken into consideration.
Yeah, what's amazing about this too is with the software available now and the big budgets that kind of require saving money wherever they can, most or many visual effects heavy films will basically shoot the film before they even shoot the film. They'll pre-visualize everything. Yeah. And some of the Star Wars, I'm sure you've seen these, John, Killian, the pre-vis versions of the Star Wars movies recently are almost watchable. They're almost, certainly they're not as polished as the finished pieces, but they are amazingly intricate. And the reason for that is, they're trying to see what works before they go spending the money with the crew and all of that. So
yeah, when you're spending $100 million on a movie, spending $50,000 or $100,000 to do a pretty good animatic seems like a really wise expense. Let's make sure that we need all these shots and that it's working before we go out and we spend the $100 million. That's why I was referencing the Marvel movies do that too. A lot of these, the big budget movies are doing that because it's like insurance. How do we know if this works? Well, let's do the cheapest version of it we can do. And if it works, the big version is going to work too, Yeah, good point, Bill.
Yeah, it's just fun, and it's just amazing to see what can be done nowadays. So, okay, was there anything else on collaboration you wanted to chat about or talk about?
No, I think, we look at this from all different angles. So if some of you are used to working with just yourself and your friends, we're gonna talk about, larger group collaboration. But there's absolutely room for groups of 1 or 2 or 3 people making films. I oftentimes am doing projects with just a couple of people, smaller projects, but that doesn't make them less. It just means they're smaller in scope, or maybe they're going to take 10 years to make. And so we do them in iterations instead of 50 people together for 3 weeks. We had a filmmaker Skype into my class this week, Joel Petroikis, and his last couple of movies are opening South by Southwest, and he's keeping his crew small, he's keeping his budget small, and he also has a good distribution deal. So collaboration starts with over here ideation and who's going to work with you, but he's now collaborating with his distributors because they like his work so much that they're saying, well, we keep making work that you're making. What do you need to do that? How can we help you do that? It's a really beautiful thing to see. You don't see that a lot, but it's a great story to see a filmmaker who's he's got his system in place now. So he's just got to keep the train rolling and yeah, crank out a movie every 2 years. So check him out, Joel Petroikis, doing some really interesting work.
Cool. Thank you, John. Killian, why don't you get us started off in the next section here? We want to maybe talk about the types of films that we do and the types of projects we do here at Flashpoint and at Columbia College. How do you kind of view the projects we work on? What are your thoughts on that?
Everything. So yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think we've ever said that type of thing won't work. We've had dance performances. We've had, of course, music videos, and the music videos can be the kind where you go out and you film a bunch of metal guys around a big fire, or they can be the kind that are created to EDM with fish hanging off of yarn and underwater cardboard submarines. We've had narrative, documentary, personal documentary, talking heads documentary, cinema verite, behind the scenes. We've had all subgenres of films, including in the narratives, we've had horror. I could go on, but I think I'm boring.
Yeah, it's, I wouldn't say that. No, so I guess in a way, anything that you come up with will probably find a home here.
Right.
And a receptive audience, and our job is to help you realize that in the best way possible and give you things to think about that you might not have thought about previously. So yeah, we do. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What's that?
John.
Oh, sorry, John.
I mean, from the folks out there in the audience, of whom I can only see one person, but I'm wondering what kind of projects you guys are interested in making. Because we can talk about a lot of different things, which is fun. I mean, clearly we're happy to just chat and show you guys stuff and you thoroughly entertained. But I'd love to know what you guys want to make. Like, what kind of projects are you guys interested in?
Yeah, why are you coming to film school?
It could be your favorite genre of movie. It could be documentary. It could be music. It could be anything. We're just curious what you just want to make a bunch of money. You don't care about making money. You want to do web series. Like what, there's no wrong answers here.
Yeah. Feel free to write it in the chat. Feel free to
Subscribe.
write it yourself.
Hit the bell if you want to receive notifications. Hit subscribe and leave your comment in the chat.
Yeah, if that's easier for you, just leave it in the chat, and we can certainly address that. So,
Angelica has got a picture in the snow. Do you want to make movies in the snow? I like movies in the snow. That's all I got. Or we can make a movie on the beach. I see a beach and a snow. We've got the whole range of weather experiences.
And they can star Kyle Ryan.
yeah.
Okay, well, how about we watch some stuff and let people talk while we watch?
Sure.
You guys want to
so-
watch a movie?
So just to give you an idea, what's going on now is we've got a student who's doing a thesis film. Actually, it's a web series. So he's doing 2 of the 4 episodes he's written. He's actually producing 2 of the films, and this is actually it. Now, keep in mind, this is going to be a little bit jumpy because we're playing it over Zoom, but you'll get the idea, and also we'll provide links afterwards to send to you. So this is Roberto. It's not completely finished. He's got some audio done. He's got some color correction, but this is the edit of the film, and it's called Two Minds Think Alike.
I think this is episode 2, if I remember correctly.
That's everything, right? Yeah, that should be it. Nice. What's up? What are you doing? Sitting. Because? Because I'm exhausted. Exhausted? Really, dude? You barely took any of the heavy boxes. What are you talking about? I took the heavy one right there. Really, Ren? That heavy box over there is filled with mops and broomsticks. Okay, it was still heavy. A mop and a broomstick? Dude, how lazy can you be? I'm not lazy, and I don't understand why we have to put mops and broomsticks into a box. Well, because they have to be in the box. Yeah, but why? Because I said so. Okay, so that's your whole argument? Ren, don't think about doing anything stupid. Oh, I don't know. I think it's pretty stupid to put mops and broomsticks into a box. Are we seriously having this argument right now? Maybe. You know there's only one way to settle this. Is that the best you can do? I'm just warming up. Such a cliche thing to say.
Why do we have to put mops and broomsticks into boxes? Because I said so.
Fellas? I don't mean to interrupt playtime or anything, but I'm gonna need you guys to sign this so I can get on my way.
Did you see any of that?
Yeah. Saw the whole thing. Oh my God. I tell you, that's one of the most pathetic things I've seen in my life. Y'all call that fighting? Se la chingada.
I thought it was kind of badass.
Badass? Really? Oh, está cabrón. Yeah.
Sure. From like an artistic perspective, you can.
Ren, could you just sign the paper so we can get this over with?
Don't hurt me. Se la chingada.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah, I guess it was.
A little bit.
You think he's gonna tell his friends?
Probably. Tell your friends we saw an awesome fight scene.
Awesome fight scene. I thought it was pretty good, but I doubt that anybody else thought that.
Well, if you could just sort of get motivation of the characters.
If you saw it from an artistic
Nice. So yeah, what's fun as an instructor, and I know John and Killian will back me up on this, to see where Roberto has come from to where he is now is amazing. And I know when he first came up with the idea, both John and I were like, okay, I'm not quite sure what this is going to add up to. It turned out really nice.
I told him repeatedly I did not know what this was about, and I thought it was kind of silly. And it is. That's kind of the point, though. Is this is exactly what he wanted to make. And this is a guy who went from making, YouTube videos with his cell phone, which again, people seem to like his sense of humor. And he didn't really want to talk or work with other people the first year he was at Flashpoint, and we just kind of like, Roberto, if you really want to step your game up, you've got some bigger ideas, you're going to have to start collaborating with other people. And it wasn't easy for him to start working with larger groups of people, but he did, and worked with some of our best students to execute his idea, and I think at maybe a higher level than he had expected, because it's just, he had these small ideas, but they really weren't small ideas. He was just not executing them at the scale they could be executed at. So yeah, it was really fun to watch him watch him make this. See him make this. Sorry.
Yeah. It's funny too, because it's also, it's very simple and it's kind of just silly, but the conflict is steady throughout. It doesn't, it stays on track. It's all about, it just builds nicely. It just, it's turned out really nicely, and I can't wait to see the second episode that he's got coming up. So have either of you guys seen the second episode yet?
I've seen 2/3 of the first episode. This is episode number 2. The first episode is he had to redo one of the scenes, and so we never saw the whole thing. But
So you never saw that. Ozzy, you said you had a question?
Not exactly a question, but it's just I mean, since people talking about what kind of movies or films they would like to do,
Yeah.
I just would like to share what I'm interested in and what I've done so far. I mean, I should have introduced myself, so, but I don't know if we have time to do so. But I'm very interested in this topic. What I would like to do is I'm more interested in like identity, more interested in documentary, like based on true story. And in my previous experience, I've been doing a couple of documentaries as well as short films, and I became more interested in that subject, like adoption, or try to tell the connection between two individuals, more finding themselves. And so if you guys want to give me an opportunity, I have a 1 minute teaser I can share with you if you want to. I mean, I'm not I was just offering, if you guys want to, I can show you what I'm talking about.
I have no problem with that. It's a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah. Do you have the link right there? Send me the link in the chat.
Yeah, sure. Is it ready already? So let me show you here.
And this is a teaser for a documentary you've been working on?
This is a teaser for a future film that I started, but I didn't finish. I wrote the script and also directed, but because of the financial situation, I stopped doing the film because, I mean, there was a lot of how do you say it? It's like I was very impulsive at that time when I did this project. I was interested in the topic, but it was only me who was just fighting for the project.
Right.
So then I just stopped at some point.
Right.
This-
So you could play it just to let everyone know, because I know we had the hour 45-minute time limit. If you need to go, that's totally fine. I think this will be a great way to end everything. And thank you to our panelists for running this. This has been amazing. And this is only the beginning. We're going to have so many more events for filmmakers. I know the film faculty at the Los Angeles campus at Columbia College Hollywood, they're going to be holding an event next week. So we just want to keep you guys engaged. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. But Killian, Bill, John, thank you so much. And more to come.
Thanks,
Okay.
Brad.
Yep.
Just to let you know, Ozzy, this is actually saying 6 minutes.
Yes,
So
I'm just showing the first 1 minute and 39 seconds. That's what I wanted to share with you. The rest we can just live with.
We'll watch it later. We got the link.
Okay. Yeah.
Vad är det du inte förstår? Kan du inte bara... Så hur många gånger ska jag förklara för dig? Jag mår inte bra. De här människorna som du ska leta efter. Om de inte brydde sig om dig förr, varför tror du de ska bry sig om dig nu? Vad fan har du på med? Jag spyr varenda jävla morgon. För jag har ett barn i min mage, fattar du? Jag ringde inte för. Min mobil var avstängd. Vadå min mobil var avstängd? Och nu står du här med dina kompisar. Är du dum på något sätt eller? Eller skiter du i mig? Men du är ju vuxen. Jag har inte setts på 2 månader räknade jag ut. Skål Jakob. Jag och din mamma har bestämt oss att vi vill ge dig denna speciella present. Som vi hoppas kan hjälpa dig. Är det sant? Flygbiljett.
So we can stop there.
Okay. Yay.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing. That we always love when people volunteer to share their work. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. So, I mean,
Where
I
was-
know you didn't maybe understood the language. Sorry, John, what you were saying something.
Oh, where was that in Paris? Where was that?
No, it was in Stockholm, Sweden. So I grew up in Sweden, so I came here a few years ago. I tried to pursue a film degree, another film degree. I mean, I had a film study at the Stockholm Film School, and then I came here just to continue that dream. So while I was there, I did this not documentary. It was actually a feature film, but then I started with the teaser, or not teaser. It was just a pilot project.
Yeah.
The first 6 minutes was a pilot project, but then I also continued to do it the whole future. But then I stopped at some point because of the pressure, because I was doing most of the part by myself. But
Not easy, is it?
the conversation, huh?
It's not easy, is it?
Yeah, it was very difficult. So
Yeah.
the conversation was about this guy who was just living his past and tried to know exactly. I mean, who was playing Jacob, me. He is adopted by this Swedish family, and also his girlfriend is pregnant. So he's asking himself, okay, I want to know first about myself before I even create a new human being. So it was a discussion between him and his girl, as well as the discussion between him with the Swedish family. That was the short part of what you saw.
Yeah. Well, and it's great that a lot of it comes through regardless of the language barrier. You know, I didn't quite get the pregnant girlfriend. There was clear some drama, but he was adopted, and that there was he's trying to come to some decision about something. Those things were very clear. Well done.
Thank you for the opportunity to share with you.
Of course.
No problem. Yeah, you're off to a great start.
Yay.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Bill, Killian, John. Again, we are here for everybody. More events to come. I'm hoping to see these three again in June. We'll come up with something else. But thank you all for taking time out of your day. And just know, sometimes you do feel alone. You're not alone. Look at this as an example. We're all here. We're excited to make films. So thank you so much. And we'll see you soon, hopefully on campus soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.